You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with creator and host, NOMAD. With 20 plus years of experience in the music industry, NOMAD has done just about everything to earn a living as a career musician. From being music director to celebrity artists, playing iconic arenas and stadiums, composing for film and TV, and even playing your average local club gigs, he's done it all. NOMAD's mission is to empower musicians across the globe with strategies for a sustainable career while blasting stereotypes, and to bring you tried and true wisdom from his colleagues in this crazy business we call music.
This episode of the Career Musician Podcast features Norwood Fisher of Fishbone. That's right, the band originally formed in 1979 out here in Los Angeles, California, which plays a fusion of ska, punk, funk, metal, reggae, and soul. Say that 5 times fast, I dare you. Fishbone are still rocking today. I love these guys. I got turned on to them in the mid-90s, just about when they were on the Lollapalooza circuit with none other than the Beastie Boys. Sit back and relax as Norwood and I chop it up about East Coast swag on the West Coast scene, as he personifies to the umpteenth extent. This man is a funky, rockin', gnarly musician, bass player, actor, writer, and everything else in between. Check it out right here on The Career Musician. Well, bro, let me just start by saying it's an honor to have you on The Career Musician. I'm a big fan of your music. And, I'm really looking forward to this. Fishbone, man. I remember, now I didn't get turned on to you guys until the early to mid 90s. But once I did, I was hooked, because what I love about you guys is the blend of funk, rock, ska, soul. I mean, just you guys throw everything in there,
Yeah, we, you know what? We was just doing what came natural anyway. So we was, for us, we were just happy that people will appreciate what we were doing, so it was the music that we did completely just simply reflected our listening habits.
Ah, okay.
Right? Like that's just how we listened to music like that. Like we didn't, no one cared about genre. We were just like, oh, that's a dope song. You know, if it was funkadelic, if it was Gary Newman, if it was Fear or the Dead Kennedys, that's how we shared music with each other.
Man, I love that. That is so righteous. That's the way it should be, man.
Yeah, it was, and the time, the times that when we were our teen years, I was 12 in 1977.
Yeah.
So that's the year the punk broke, right?
Ah, that's dope. Okay, I see.
What I mean?
Yeah.
So by the time I turned 14, punk was actually making this impact in the media in a way that brought forth the curiosity. And new wave, right? You can imagine, 77, 78, 79, Saturday Night Live, right? Had Devo, Fear, right?
That's a trip. That's right there, yeah. That's
I'm sure Blondie showed up somewhere in there, right?
Oh yeah, Blondie, yeah.
What I mean? It's like so things were changing.
Right.
There was a shift, so I like I'm a hippie at heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Jimi Hendrix, The Who, right?
Man.
It was so I went to see The Who's first farewell tour, which happened to be the Clash opening.
Oh wow.
Right?
Yeah.
At the LA Memorial Coliseum. So that was insane. So that was the two worlds that I was, two worlds colliding, like this mod band that actually resonated with hippie culture, The Who, and then the Clash, which was the punk band that actually expanded out into reggae and funk, you know.
Right.
That actually preceded Fishbone and being difficult to define genre-wise.
Man, I love the whole concept of being genre ambiguous. I think that's amazing. Like my wife and I talk about it all the time because we're in a band together. We have a duo. And we call ourselves the Music Mutts. You know, that's like that's not our title, but that's one of our monikers, Music Mutts. Because we're mutts. We were, like you said, we were raised with everything, you know? And as you know, it seems like the industry, the record labels and the executives and A&R always try to put you in one category so they could sell you, right? So they can market and sell it. And you know, just doing the research on Fishbone, it's like one of the things that was always said about you guys, you know, an eclectic band. Like you guys have rave reviews for being perhaps one of the dopest, you know, eclectic bands of the 80s and 90s, you know, like, so I think it's amazing. I think what you guys did is amazing, fusing all the genres and being, you know, real instrumentalists and singers.
Yeah, and you know, I guess fortunately for us, is that it was purely an authentic expression.
Right.
So like, you know, like we didn't even look at like any of the recordings that came out. We never had any protocol like you got to have so much of this style and so much of that style. It was like, is it a good song?
Right.
And that's all you ever got was like the best songs that we wrote. There was no, you know, protocol to be anything but the guys that presented their best songs.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What was it like? Was it a democratic process where you'd all sit in the basement or the garage or whatever and say, hey, who's got a song today or who's got a song this week? Or how did that all happen? What was the process?
You know what? It was, we were a band that started, you know, we first played as 14-year-olds.
Right.
Right. So 79, you know, we rehearsed from 79 to 83.
Nice.
So it was a lot of time to get to know each other, music, to grow, to share, to begin to write songs. And so, yeah, we didn't really think about, especially then, it was just when somebody came to the band, you know, we didn't judge it in advance. We just go at it, you know?
That's awesome.
And it wasn't until after we made our first recording with Columbia that we got to, okay, it's time to make a new album. Right. And then it's just like it was still like everybody bring whatever you got.
Yeah.
You know, some people Kendall always wrote the most. I maybe wrote the second most. And Angelo wrote quite a bit too.
Okay.
Right. So, and then we would write together. Kendall would call me on the phone, like, I got a song, I can't think of lyrics beyond this. And then I would finish out what he had if I could. You know, most of the times I would. And Kendall and Angelo wrote together really well. And eventually Kendall and Chris really started to write together really well.
Gotcha.
I think Angelo would write with everybody.
Nice.
You know, and sometimes, you know, like depending on what was there, like we'd write ourselves into each other's songs. Mm-hmm. You know, if that's what it took.
Yeah.
You know, but it seemed to me like it all came from a place of purity. Like we're just trying to do the best songwriting that we could imagine.
Right.
And then beyond that, no two ways about it, David Kahn, the guy that brought us to Columbia Records, signed us, our A&R man and producer. Like he was a gigantic part of the vetting process. Mm. You know, so, and we trusted him. So, and even though like, you know, there was frustrations at various times, I completely look back on the whole experience like it had to be David Kahn, and it's his input that actually it couldn't be what you love without him.
Wow.
You know? So I completely appreciate it all.
That's amazing. So he helped you guys really formulate and shape what Fishbone is to this day?
Yeah, absolutely. He was an integral part of it as an arranger, He didn't write into everything, but where it was necessary, he did. But he basically, he was the right guy for the job. And I feel like who we are, had everything to do with his sense of arrangement. I learned a lot from him. Yeah. I'm producing a record right now, and believe me, everything that I'm doing is built on a foundation of what I learned with David Kahn.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I have just appreciation and respect.
That's a beautiful thing, man. So you and Fish grew up together, you and your brother Philip?
Yeah, he's my younger brother.
Right, so you guys grew up together, like you said, listening to everything, whether it was rock and roll, funk, soul music, punk. And then did you guys at an early age figure out, oh, shoot, we're musicians and we play well together? And did it happen organically, or what was that process like?
I was 6 years old and I asked for a guitar for Christmas. And that same year he asked for a snare drum.
So you just knew. You just inherently knew.
What else was we going to do? I got a guitar, you got a snare. Let's write some songs. That's the first thing we did.
That's awesome.
Like we made up some shit and kept doing it.
How cool is that?
I had the pleasure of working with Fish a couple years ago with another artist named Cat Graham, and man, it was so cool to meet your brother, and I really enjoyed that. So, I mean, you guys are badasses,
I was 6, he was 4. Like he's a 4-year-old with a snare drum, figuring out how to get towards a paradiddle.
Right.
That is so cool, man. So cool.
We have an aunt that's sort of close in age to us. She's a little older than me. She was in a marching band in Sacramento. So, he was like, he liked that marching band thing.
Gotcha. So that's what prompted the snare drum request. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Man, so what part of the country did you grow up? Are you a native Los Angeles?
100% Southern California.
Oh, man, that's cool. You guys are a rarity.
Yes.
Very cool. So what was the music like in your house growing up? You mentioned all these different styles. Was there particular things that your folks liked listening to, or was it literally just a big gumbo of everything?
Well, my dad was like a hippie rocker.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like he was open-minded.
That's awesome.
My mother was more, church, and so there was gospel church vibes and more R&B. She was not playing the rock.
Okay.
Right? They were divorced when I was 5.
Okay.
So, but my dad was like, he was about some Jimi Hendrix and some Sly and the Family Stone, and actually, and his sister, my Aunt Jackie, she and her husband liked funkadelic. Like they had this room where they had a black light room in their house in Compton.
Nice.
And there was like they did funkadelic paintings on the walls.
That's awesome.
And Robbie, her husband, he collected adult comics, right?
Interesting.
So it would be like Robert Crumb and
very cool.
The Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and things of that nature. So they had alternative points of view for Black people in that time. But maybe it wasn't that unusual to be exploratory as people like to think. Because I think about by the time I got to high school, I had friends that liked rock, Black friends that liked rock.
Right.
Most of them wasn't into punk rock, but my high school years, actually there was a time in LA where everybody kind of listened to everything. And a lot of it first really in the Black community because Prince put out Dirty Mind.
Wow.
And when there's things on that cover the pins on his jacket. Rude Boy is one of the pins, right?
Uh-huh.
Like that kind of turned the hood out. And then the Times first album, which came in that same time period. When, like, I remember hearing it on the radio. Somebody, the announcer, saying, "Yeah, did you know that at the time, their wardrobe on the album cover, is all thrift store clothes."
Right.
But that's it. The whole West Side, black neighborhoods went to Melrose. Maybe the whole hood. Ran down to Melrose and started buying thrift store clothes. Right? And discovered two-tone. Two-tone was super inclusive, you know? Two-tone said very clearly, this music is for you too. You know?
That's so important, man. I'm so glad you touched on that, because as my father's Cuban, my mom's Italian, so as a Cuban Italian, but on the outside I look like, you know, a regular white dude. But I've always loved all styles of music. I grew up playing rock, but then I got heavily into funk and soul and R&B, right? Yeah. And I was like always on the opposite side of that. So here you are, a black guy getting into rock and punk and all that. Here I'm a white guy getting into soul and R&B. And for me, what I love what you just said is it's all inclusive, man. There shouldn't be these guidelines and these borders. It should be all open. So again, I love that's what you represent.
So this is okay. So even me, as the bassist that I am, right? So I got a guitar at age 6. At age 8, I asked for a weight set for Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas Day, my cousin Bud comes over. He looks at me, he looks at the weight set, and he looks at me and he goes, "Boy, you ain't gonna lift them weights." And he made me a deal to trade the weights for his bass. He was like, "I'll trade you my bass. I'll throw in the amp and the speaker, which was PV Mark IV with a 215 cabinet speaker." And he's like, "I'll throw in my rock record collection." Now that's age 8. He's like, "I'm not listening to rock anymore. I'm only listening to jazz."
Wow.
Right? So I acquired this rock record collection, which had like the first Funkadelic album and America Eats Us Young. Wow. It had Woodstock 2. It had, there was some Jefferson Airplane in there. There was Chicago Transit Authority.
Wow.
There was it was a bunch of stuff. And the first Grand Central Station album, Sly and the Family Stone Stand, A Band of Gypsies, Axis Bold as Love, and the first posthumous Jimi Hendrix album, A Cry of Love.
Wow.
Maybe Electric Ladyland, did I say that? I think that was in there too.
Okay.
So anyway, and there was more, right? So there was so I was able to freely go through those records, right?
That's awesome.
And then there was just what was on the radio in that time, right? I was listening to black radio all the time.
Yeah.
It got older and started exploring the dial more,
right?
You know, and listening to straight up rock radio. By the time I was like, you know, and Dr. Demento.
I'm not even hip.
You're not hip to Dr. Demento?
Oh, I'm looking it up, though. Talk about that, Dr. Demento.
Okay, so Dr. Demento played the out shit.
Okay, was he Barry Hansen?
I believe that is who Dr. Demento is.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
He had this radio show come on Sunday nights on KLOS, I believe. There was 2 stations, KLOS and KMET, that were the big rock stations, and I want to think it was KLOS. But Dr. Demento, that's where I would hear Frank Zappa. Right? Listening to Dr. Demento. He played, Dr. Demento, like the name, he played the crazy out shit. It's where maybe I heard the Residents first.
Got you.
Right?
I love that, man. I'm typing. I can't keep up with everything you're saying. I love. So you're spitting some good knowledge here, some historical facts. Okay, so you're growing up now. You're immersed. You're listening to all this stuff, and like you said, you're taking the time. You have at your leisure. You could go through all these records and pick them apart. So,
Yeah.
Are you starting to study and figure out the lines on the bass and the guitar, copying the albums, or are you just focusing on how you want to play music? Like, how deep did you go?
Mostly just analytical listening, but not playing a bunch of these songs.
Yes.
Right?
I like that. Just analytical.
Yeah. Like we didn't really sit up and learn a bunch of things. We wrote our own songs.
Right.
Because otherwise everybody else's sound influences you too much. And your own voice can't come out. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and that's possible, like, because we were super duper Funkadelic fans, because at the point of entry, I was so young,
Yeah.
It was probably 7 when my cousin brought over those 2 Funkadelic albums. He brought them over. His mother wouldn't allow him to play them in her house.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's
She was
funny.
like, "Oh, they too nasty. You can't play that here." So he came to my mom's house and she allowed him to play it.
Gotcha.
The first Funkadelic album in America Eats Its Young. I used to think I was 6, but it does, like, America Eats Its Young didn't come out early enough for me to be 6. But so, like me and my brother was hooked from the very beginning. So it's interesting because I did not sit down and listen to a bunch of Parliament and Funkadelic albums and try to play those songs either.
Right.
It was listening pleasure, analyzing what was happening.
Yep.
We didn't just sit up and play them. Like when my ear came together, I was 12, and the first 3 songs that I really grasped was like Brick House by the Commodores.
Yep.
Song called You and I by Rick James, and Night of the Thumpasaurus Peoples by Parliament. The Mothership Connection album, right? But I still didn't go through the P-Funk catalog and just learn a bunch of songs. Like, I would learn songs, but the stuff that I really loved, I didn't learn a bunch. And then as the original Fishbone guys began to come together and we started being a band, like, we played some of that stuff, but we didn't sit up and learn it note for note.
Right.
What we learned note for note was Rush.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, entry-level Rush was Permanent Waves.
Nice.
Right? And like, so we learned Rush note for note. We learned Permanent Wave albums and Moving Pictures. I'm positive we learned every song on both of those albums.
Wow.
Me, Kendall, and Fish.
See, and I could hear it in your music because you guys do these beautiful unison guitar and bass lines. I was going to ask you about that. So,
yes.
Okay, so that's the connection.
Yes. And other than that, like, we was just playing whatever, like, because Kendall's ear was impeccable. So he'd come in playing like Rock Lobster or some Gary Newman, or we played Devo. We didn't learn the albums, Gates of Steel. That was something that we all sat up and played a bunch by Devo. It was other Devo songs too that we learned, but, like, we weren't looking to go out and be a cover band.
Right.
We just learned those songs for fun.
Man, let's talk about that, because that's something that I try to bring to light all the time with young musicians, especially aspiring, career musicians, as I call it. There's a big difference between being a side man, or like a cover band or a side man for other artists, and being an artist. So it sounds like you guys knew from an early point that you wanted to be your own band. You wanted to be an artist. Is that true from an early age?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And talk about that, man. It's like, because that's interesting that you knew so young. Not everybody knows that young,
Well, it was really like a very specific point. And again, we were just playing stuff to be for fun at this time, just, play Knee Deep or play whatever Rick James song was popular, Busting Out or whatever it was at the time. And we just be in the room, let's playing what we could. And it was Dirty Walt. Dirty Walt was like, we better get to writing our own songs if we want to be anything.
Right.
Walt just kind of yanked us out of this space and was like, there was a very specific moment.
Right.
And we listened to him, shift gears, and took a direction.
Bam, that was it.
That was it.
So did you ever spend a portion of your career working as a sideman, or no? It was always Fishbone or nothing?
Like me and Fish, we played with a band called Animal Dance very early as we got out playing clubs.
Okay.
We've done that. We've done the sideman thing. I've done it. Fish, you played with Fish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He does that.
Yeah.
He when he left the band, that's who he became.
Gotcha.
So, but it mostly my identity is connected to the guys that became Fishbone.
Right.
Like I've been playing with the same dude since age 14.
That's really cool, man, because not too many people can say that.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. Like even when times are rough, I could look around and be like, well, if I'm in a very unique situation because of that.
Right. Right.
And there's a beauty to it, even if it ain't easy.
That's right. Wow. Man, I remember in my first rock band back in New York, my homies, when I was like 13, 14, 15, I don't get to play with those guys anymore. So again, I do think there's something special about that. Now, I noticed that also Fishbone had a lot of members that would come in and out over the years.
Yeah.
And on stage, you guys seemed like, again, you adopted that kind of P-Funk mentality where it's just a big band having fun, not jamming, but almost, because you have definitely songs, but you guys were definitely had that. Would you call it jam band, or what would you call it? What was that culture that was happening?
Well, it is the spirit of allowing for improvisation.
Right.
Like within the context of most of what we do is room for that. Sometimes we take full advantage, sometimes a little less.
Yeah.
But yeah, if that's, we are fans of freedom.
I love that. I'm writing that down. That's going in the interview notes. Fans of freedom.
Yeah.
So like our whole, we were always like, you record something and it's one way and it should evolve.
Mm-hmm.
It should evolve. It should grow.
Yes.
Like there's some bands that perfect the art of playing it just like you recorded. And that's a possible way to be. I ain't mad at the people that do it.
Right.
But that is not my idea of what it means to be an artist.
Right.
My idea of an artist, of being an artist, is to allow for the expression to be pure for today. I feel this way today. My 100% or more that I'm giving you is based on how I feel right now.
Right.
Not 3 years ago, not when I wrote the song, not yesterday. Like you're getting me being present to whatever my day brought me, how the person that I'm looking into the eyes of in the audience, if everybody's raising hell on stage, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's so awesome, man. All right, so early on, you guys got signed to Columbia, you were saying, right?
Yes.
All right, so you hit the road for the first time as a band. What was that like? Talk about that, man. That had to be a blast.
Well, you know what? That was, we were starting to hit the road before we fully connected to that deal. And so, like riding to San Francisco,
So like regional gigs.
Yeah, doing the regional gigs like San Francisco, Denver,
Yeah.
But when we finally released the record and we went from LA to New York and back, and we played at Irving Plaza.
Nice.
Our first time in New York. The whole trip was insane.
Yeah.
It's like we're on tour, ain't none of us like legal for shit. Our tour manager didn't have a driver's license. He just riding in my van.
That's awesome.
But it was an incredible time for us. Like we were still. I think I was 19, and so I was 19. Ronald Reagan was president, right?
Wow.
And he had already gotten at all the states to say, you must raise your drinking age limit or we're going to take away federal dollars for your roads.
Wow.
Right? So I was at the just right age to where I was 19, I could get to New York, I could drink. I was legal to go to a bar.
Thank goodness, man.
Go back to New York. I'm 20.
Yeah.
They just raised it to 20,
Oh, wow.
I went with it. And that, for better or worse, it was important for me at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, for better or worse, it's still important to me from time to time. Now. Yeah. And you know what? That very first show, it was Vernon Reid's Living Color opening.
Nice.
That was before there was Corey Glover in the band.
Wow. So they were opening for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And it was, we was just young, wild, you know, and so look, and this is like San Francisco became our second home.
Nice.
And then New York became our second home.
Gotcha.
Like we hit New York so much, people thought we were from the East Coast.
Right. Well,
maybe it had to do with the energy of the band too.
I was just gonna say, man, you guys strike me as East Coast, man. I grew up East Coast, born and raised New York, and there's something about the East Coast, man. It's like we don't give a fuck. Everything's like, yo, you either like this, you like what we do, or you don't. Fuck you. I'm not here to please you. And that's what I love about you guys.
So yeah, and that's why people I know that's why people embraced us. And look, it's things about New York and New Yorkers that just straight up like Fishbone encountering Murphy's Law, right? Like that was License to Ill tour, Beastie Boys, right? Fishbone encountered Murphy's Law, and it was like, damn, they remind us of home. They like a Crip gang or something.
Right.
We related to them.
That's awesome. Yes.
So that was an immediate bonding and brotherhood. So, it's things like that there's similarities to these big cities.
Right. For sure. What was some of the biggest tours that you remember doing that you were like, okay, shoot, man, this is like, whether you said to yourself, I know we're not supposed to say it, but whether you said to yourself, oh man, we made it, or, I'm happy I reached the goal that I wanted to reach, or, I feel successful. When was that point? Like, what were some of those tours or time periods in your career that you felt that?
Those things happen over and over and over again because, again, like we're in a very fortunate position, just the timing of when we emerged, So believe me, being on the License to Ill tour was that was one of them, the whole world is watching moments.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like all eyes were on the Beastie Boys at that time, and we were direct support.
Right.
So it was an incredible experience. You know, and honestly, you know, there's, you know, like we did in the I believe it was the early 90s, like we did a stretch where we did 2 tours where just Fishbone and Primus. The first one we headlined, and the second one they headlined. And maybe in between, I want to think in between was Lollapalooza, but it might not have been in between.
Gotcha.
But my timelines are all fucked up.
Yeah, that's all right.
But you know, all of that time was incredible. It's like,
right.
You know, like Lollapalooza itself.
Yeah.
Right? Like Perry Farrell's the homie. And he created this thing that became ubiquitous in the minds of what it meant to have there was no traveling concerts.
Ah, right.
There was no traveling festivals before Lollapalooza.
Right.
Right. So he changed the world with that one.
Yeah, that's huge.
You know? So, you know, being on Lollapalooza, it was just like one, you know, it's like rock and roll summer camp backstage, right? It's kind of like, you know, it's fucking insane.
One could only imagine.
and, you know, having it be like, you know, Alice in Chains, Primus, Fishbone, Arrested Development,
wow.
You know, and so many other bands. It was just like, you know, that was the biggest thing on the planet.
Right.
And that's like, was that mid-90s or early 90s?
93.
93. Gotcha. I remember that, man. I do remember that. Unfortunately, I didn't ever get to see it live, but I remember that whole movement.
Hey, you heard of that band Fishbone? Well, I'm the bass player. My name is Norwood Fisher to be exact. You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with the good brother NOMAD. Stay tuned.
The goal of the Career Musician Podcast is to provide valuable insight aimed at supporting working musicians. Please show your support by listening, downloading, subscribing, sharing, liking, and leaving a review.
Subscribe to the brand new Career Musician YouTube channel, now streaming all of the Career Musician Podcast episodes.
And that, like I said, that's when I was getting into you guys. And speaking of Primus, I think that's a really cool, you know, combination, you guys and Primus, because you got Les on bass and you on bass, and you guys are both like freaking, you know, prodigy bass players. You know, that must have been cool.
That was amazing. You know, by the time we got to Lollapalooza, we had a long history.
Okay.
You know, like, because we had done things in clubs in California.
Sure.
You know, so, and had bonded and, you know, knew there was mutual love.
Right.
Right. By then, it was just like, oh, homies, just, you know, it's a family affair.
Right. Which makes it even better.
It does.
That's what the road has to be about, right? Otherwise, it's, you know,
it's best when we most of our encounters have been positive with most bands. Like, right. You know, just like I ain't got a lot of complaining to do about nobody. So you know what I mean. My memories are almost all really good.
That's awesome, man. Attitude of gratitude is the right thing, right?
Yeah, man.
That's beautiful. All right, so what would you tell, whether there's like a young musician coming up just being a sideman or a young band coming up touring as their own band, what advice would you give them when they hit the road?
Okay, so not everybody is built to tour their entire lives, right? Like, I'm built for that. I'm built for what I do. I have not tired of touring, but it's possible that you can. You know, just not like the road, you know, entertainment in general, movies, music, television, the structure of it makes it easy to fall into excess. And I did my fair share of excess. You know, mainly I just pay attention to how you living, enjoy it to the fullest, you know, but, you know, watch out for the traps. You know, there's plenty of traps. So and the traps all feel good.
Yes, they do.
So, just keep in mind, like, just what it is, I wouldn't tell anybody not to do anything because I did enough myself to where I don't want to look like a hypocrite. But what I would say, put the music first.
That's good advice. Yeah.
Like, just really make sure that the music is why you're doing it.
Yep.
Not for the party, not for the sex, not for the adoration.
Yeah.
Put the music first, and you could always have, like, if you get a little far out there, you can always bring it back to the music.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's spoken like a true professional, man. You've been there, you've done that, you've seen it all, but at the same time, like you said, enjoy it, but just, gauge your balance, right? Watch yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's all.
Because some people, you don't know that you can't pull yourself out of a bag until you're trapped in a bag. And you like, oh shit, I'm stuck.
Man,
I can't cut this shit loose. You know what I mean? So that's all. That's just I lost some friends. Yeah. And I got some friends stuck in cycles that they can't seem to work their way out of. So that's all.
Right.
Don't want to see anybody in those situations.
Absolutely not. Man. All right. So conversely, what advice would you give to young bands that are getting ready to sign record deals, or perhaps that are, looking to sign with a label and whatnot? And any business advice that you would give in that direction?
Always talk to a lawyer.
Amen.
like talk to a few lawyers if you can.
Yes.
Like, get outside advice. And if you will, hope that you can find people that you can ask free advice that are knowledgeable. The current paradigm, which includes 360 deals, like, that is the most absurd. Like, I would not suggest anybody follow that path.
Right.
There may be some upsides to it that I can't see. I come from a time where people look to have more ownership than not, by and large. 360 deals did not exist in the time when I was coming up. If I was young and that's all there was, maybe I would have dealt with it. I don't know. I can't see it, though.
Right.
That wasn't my life. But the deals that we did have, there were downsides to those. I always looked at the people that own their own record labels, like, with admiration. Artists, people like Eazy-E. Eazy-E always looked like, like, dude, like, I haven't done it. I have owned a record label in my time, but I didn't do it well. Didn't maintain it well.
Gotcha.
So we live in a time now where artists can actually be self-empowered.
Yes.
And so, like, my advice would be to look at that. It may not be the way to go for everybody either. You have to have a particular kind of mind to run a business. And sometimes as an artist, it is beneficial to hand over some responsibilities to someone else.
Yeah, the day-to-day. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you have to be honest with yourself on what you can do, what you can accomplish. Because you may be sitting on a masterpiece, but you're not the one to bring it to the world.
Wow. Isn't that a trip?
Like, you have to really be able to so again, having a circle, having people that you could trust, people that you think are smarter than you, people that will tell you no is super important.
Yeah. That's great, because they hold you accountable.
Yeah.
There's a level of accountability that, yeah.
Yeah, and honesty is much better than somebody kissing your ass all the time.
Oh, amen to that.
Like I always imagined at a certain point, there's probably nobody around Michael Jackson that could say no.
Man, that's crazy. And you think maybe that's why some of the greats ended up the way they did because of that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's where I'm going with it. Like,
yeah,
you know.
And Prince, Michael, I mean, but you can go back, you know, people like Hendrix, and I mean, the list goes on.
Who's going to say no to Elvis?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's the king.
Right. Who's going to say no to these guys? Yeah, you're just not.
It's healthy to have people who don't think of you in a fanboy type way, fangirl type way. Like, it's healthy.
Yeah.
You know, it may feel good to be put on a pedestal, but you know, that it doesn't give you reality most times.
That's right.
You know?
Like the old saying, we all put our pants one leg on at a time, right? My dad would always say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and try taking a shit and not wiping your ass for it now. Like, you know.
that would be awful. That would be awful.
We all will get the same results.
That's right. Man.
So true. I love it, man. This is some great advice, man. Well, look, you also seem like you have held up a good level of fitness and health. You know, what are some of the things that you've done to maintain your health and lifestyle health lifestyle in general over the years? What do you enjoy doing?
You know, like, you may look at some old footage or pictures of a younger Norwood.
Yeah, bro, you're shredded in some of those pictures, bro.
Right?
You're shredded.
No. I was a chain smoker, right? Like, okay. I was a chain smoker, and I stopped smoking in '97.
Okay.
And really, Derek Brakefield was the bass player for the band called the Untouchables.
Yeah. LA
band. And Derek was one of my best friends, and he was my drinking buddy, and we'd get all fucked up, and I'd wake up on his couch, and he'd be like, "Go run with me." This motherfucker would get up and go run at fucking 5:30 in the morning after a full night of drinking, or anywhere between 5 and 7. He'd get up, he'd just wake up, go run. I don't know how many miles. Come run with me. What the fuck are you talking about? Eventually, he got me out to run, and I would run, and my lungs would clear up a little bit, and then I'd enjoy that for a while, and I put all the nicotine back, and then Flea began to ask me. He had a crew of dudes. He called it the Stud Club. So the crew of cats that would go to work out. Pete Weiss from Thelonious Monster, John Frusciante,
right,
D.H. Pellegro, and a few other guys, right? We go to Flea's house, we work out, you know, I think we lifted weights, did some push-ups, and we run a little bit. So I live on the beach at the original Muscle Beach in Santa Monica. It took me 2 weeks of going to Los Feliz, which is a good ride, showing up late every single time. Walk out my door one day and go like, why am I crossing LA to work out? I got original Muscle Beach right outside my door.
Yeah.
So I started enjoying my own neighborhood.
Nice.
And 97, I ended up quit smoking cigarettes.
Good.
And I replaced that addiction with another addiction, which was running.
Nice. Well, that's why you always look so shredded.
Yeah. So I started running, and so Derek came and ran with me a bunch and kind of kick-started me. Yeah. And then I was just off and loving it.
That's awesome.
You know, and periodically still running with Flea. He's kicks my ass every time, just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he looks pretty shredded himself, too. Yeah.
He's a monster.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Man, you know, I fell in love with running like 5 years ago, and I was pretty consistent for a good 3 years. And then my lower back started really messing with me. Have you experienced any joint pain or any back pain? And what have you done to combat that, if you have?
no joint pain and no real back pain.
Okay.
There is, I'm bad about stretching. So I do stretch some, but I'm bad about it. I'm not really like I do these really long runs, and then I got to get to my day, and stretching, that's gonna take more time. I need to get in the shower and get on with my day. Yeah. But really, anything that I'm feeling can be rectified by actually stretching.
I think that's so true. Yeah.
But I'm actually I know I got yoga in my future. And
yes.
I say that all the time because that's the other thing. But yeah, I work out. There was a time when I was working out excessively.
Yeah.
And it was very much based on Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Nice.
Fishbone, Red Hot Chili Peppers, 1986, the Best of the West tour. Fishbone, Chili Peppers, and Thelonious Monster, right? Nationwide tour. I believe we were in Atlanta, and Flea and Anthony came into the venue talking to each other. How many sit-ups did you do today? I did 1,000. I did 1,000 too. Right? So as I came toward my 40th birthday, and I was working out.
Yeah.
At that time, I just thought to myself, damn, them dudes worked out like that. Anthony's cut way back then. And he, still ripped. And
exactly.
So I was sitting up. I was like, damn, man, I ain't never did 1,000 and nothing in my life. I was like, I think for my birthday, I'm gonna try and do 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups. So the week leading up to my birthday, my 40th birthday, I started working up to 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups.
Wow.
Right? And that became my thing for a while. I don't do that anymore. It kind of drove me crazy.
I would say how the hell do you go about accomplishing that? Because that's obviously you can't do it all at once. You got to break it up.
Well, it was like I figured out how to do before then, figured out how to do 100 push-ups.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, you got to start there.
I could break it down and do 100 push-ups. So if I'm going to do 1,000, maybe I'm going to do them by 50s. But I would just, maybe do 200, take a break, do 200, take short breaks, So anyway, how I ended up, I had a martial arts teacher that was like, you want to know how to do 100 push-ups? I was like, yeah. He said, do 100 push-ups. so how I got there, if I did them by 5, I do 5 push-ups, take a 20-second break, do 5 more, take a 20-second break, and then bring it closer together, my breaks, until I could do 50 at a time.
Right.
Right? And then I do them by 25 and 100. And then I got it to where I could do 100. And then 1,000 was like, I do them by 100 until I could do 150 at a time.
Right.
I do 200 at a time. And they do 5 sets of 200. Right? So it really didn't, I'm patient. So, it didn't seem like it took up all my day. But because my workout was I had fucking 5 hours of fitness in the morning in this time.
Wow.
Right? I wake up, I do push-ups and sit-ups and whatever the fuck else I was doing. Mm-hmm. Go run. My run is an hour and a half. And then I go surfing.
Oh, wow.
2 hours. So, my head was just in this space.
That's beautiful.
Life will not afford me that right now.
Yeah. That takes a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's how I was living. So anyway, a few years ago, me and Flea is kicking it. I'm at his house. And he's like, damn, you ripped, bro. And I was not doing 1,000 push-ups and sit-ups at this time, but I was working out, maintaining my thing. He's like, damn, you ripped, bro. I was like, I got inspired by you and Anthony. He's like, yeah, really? I was like, yeah. And I told him about the show in Atlanta where they came in. Flea looked at me. He was like, "We was bullshit. I ain't never did 1,000 and nothing in my whole life."
Wow, they took you for a ride, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But at least it worked. At least it got you inspired.
Hey, you know what? I'm grateful for it. It pushed me to work towards something that I would have never imagined.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't grow up thinking about 1,000 push-ups and sit-ups.
Right.
So
I think it's important for musicians to really keep some kind of good, healthy lifestyle, because everything else we do doesn't necessarily promote it. And I'm not talking about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I'm talking about sitting in your chair, playing your bass or your guitar hunched over, right? Or standing up on stage for hours on end with the bass or the guitar strapped to your shoulders. You know, all that stuff is not good for your posture. It's not good for your bones, you know.
yeah, or traveling from city to city.
Exactly. Traveling and not getting the proper sleep and, you know.
Yes. Just simply, you got a 7-hour drive to the next city, or
Yeah.
you either in a tour bus, a van, or whatever. Like periodically, you got a 14-hour drive somewhere if you're touring.
Man.
It happens.
Yeah.
So you know, like, yeah.
And push-ups and sit-ups come in hand, and squats and all that. It comes in handy when you're locked up on the bus for 14 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 So it's you know, it's important. It's important. You know, there was times when I looked at myself and I'm like, oh, you about to turn into have a figure like Homer Simpson. You know?
Oh, man.
You got to rectify this.
That's right. That's right. Well, I love it. I'm so glad you take on the initiative to do that. Okay, so moving right along. I don't want to keep you too long. We're going to wrap up here soon. But you've given us so much, man. I really appreciate it. All the words of wisdom, and I love that, you know, your work ethic speaks for itself. You were, from an early age, you were determined to be an artist in a band, and you did just that. Wrapping it up, is there any other words of wisdom that you would throw out to anybody? You know, like I said, especially the young generation coming up.
We live in an unprecedented reality right now.
You could say that 79 over.
Like, you know, no one could prepare anyone for the world as it is.
No, sir.
I am looking forward to the sound of the youth, untethered by the influence of the past. I'm looking for the youth to take us to the future.
Nice.
So, you know, I've long thought that not much has happened that was very different musically since the 70s.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like Kraftwerk, right?
Wow.
Like, you know, reggae and dancehall and dub and punk rock and funk.
Yeah.
You know, like Fishbone came along and mixed all that together.
That's right.
Right?
That's
and
right.
all of the different styles, but most of real music innovation happened in the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for right now the soundtrack to the future is important. And I'm just want to encourage kids to, or whoever is making music to try to do something that hasn't been done before.
Mm.
I'm really curious as to what's next.
Wow.
Because Fishbone we're still in pursuit of that.
Yeah, and that's a tall order, bro.
Yeah, it's nice to have an unattainable goal ahead of you. It keeps you motivated.
That's right. That's right.
And the people will one day tell us whether we did it or not. You know?
That's right. That's right, man. So speaking of that, what's next for Fishbone? Aside from the pandemic slowing everything down, what are you guys looking to do next?
Well, you know what? We just went in the studio with Fat Mike, No Effects.
Oh, yeah.
Cut one track. It was an awesome experience. Looked like the band and the producer walked away going like, that was a fun time. So I think we're up to go figure out song number 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, and 6. I don't know.
Nice.
But we're in a good place.
That's awesome.
So one in the chamber, one on the way.
All right.
And we'll see. We just, we got a little time. Pandemic time.
This is great timing, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, would you mind if we do rapid fire questions real fast?
Yeah, let's do.
Yeah, I don't want you to think. Just answer. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Favorite food?
Black beans.
Oh, I love that. Black beans and rice. Favorite drink, libation? If you still drink, if not, what's your favorite soft drink?
Green tea.
Ah, good one. Favorite sport?
Surfing.
How do you spend your free time, assuming you have some?
That's a hard one.
I know.
Sleeping.
Okay, sleeping and working out. Yeah, right. Yeah. What activities do you enjoy on a long flight other than sleeping?
I go off into my head and sort out my problems a lot.
There you go. That's nice. Self-therapy time.
Yes. Introspection moments.
There you go.
Long flights.
There you go.
What's the last song or band that you listened to that wasn't yourself or that you didn't play on?
You know what? I went to, I pulled up this album. I don't remember the name of the album. It's a band right now. It's a band called Bad Cop on Fat Records. And so I pulled them up on Apple Music and listened to the whole album.
Nice. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
What's the latest TV show or movie you've been streaming, watching, or getting into?
Midnight Gospel.
Midnight Gospel.
Yes.
We're going to have to check that one out too.
Yes.
And when we can.
Midnight Gospel's insane.
Midnight, what's that?
Midnight Gospel.
Okay. Oh, you're saying it's insane. Got you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I can't wait to check it out. And when we can shop, do you prefer shopping in the store or online? Brick and mortar or online?
I'm old school brick and mortar dude.
I like it. Yeah. And if you had a dream collaboration musically that has not been fulfilled yet, what would it be?
I'd like to collaborate with Grace Jones.
Grace Jones. That's a good one. Wow. All right. And finally, last question. If you weren't a career musician, what do you think you would do?
I had every intention on becoming a trash man.
Really?
Yes.
Did you know somebody in the family that was like, yo, I can hook you up with a gig or what?
No. When I was in the 9th grade, I got kicked out of every class possible in the 5th period, right after lunch.
Wow.
So they made up a class for me. It's called custodial engineering.
Oh my God.
That's hilarious. They were trying to teach you a lesson?
Yes.
Wow.
But there was really no other class for me to go to, right?
Yeah.
And so I hung out with the janitors, picked up trash after all my friends ate at lunch.
Right.
But that's not really the reason why. That's just an interesting fact.
Okay.
So my real jobby job in the 11th grade was at Taco Bell.
Ah, okay.
And there was a girl that worked at Taco Bell. I can't even remember her name right now, but she's a really good looking young lady.
Yeah.
And she used to come to Taco Bell. She drove a Corvette, right? And then some days she'd roll up in a brand new Cadillac. Periodically, her family would come to pick her up, and they'd be in this gigantic motorhome. And one day I was like, what the hell does your father do to like all these nice vehicles?
That's right.
She's like, he's a trash man. I'm like, really? She's like, you'd be surprised. Trash men make a lot of money. I was like, oh shit. Like, cause trash men go to work super early.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could play clubs all night, get fucked up. If I went to work, a little buzz, who would give a fuck about a trash man hanging off the back of the truck, being a little buzz? This is a perfect job.
Man, I love that story. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. But you never had to resort to that.
No, never happened.
There you go. Knock wood. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, but that's how my wheels was spinning. Smarty pants ass motherfucker was about to have rats hopping out of trash cans on him. But
I was when you said that, I was gonna say, man, they make good money, because I remember in New York, one of my uncles was in the business, and I always remember my family talking about, yeah, well, so and so, they make good money doing that, So
yeah,
that's a big deal.
Yeah, I had a whole plan. I could be a trash man, play music,
Yeah. That's awesome. Come on, man.
I figured, what? I got to be to work at 4 a.m. I just got out the club at 2:30.
Right.
Like perfect.
And I was gonna say, and then once you get on the road, that's like lobby calls. You get back to the hotel room at 1 or 2 a.m. Your lobby calls at 4 or 5 a.m. So again, you're conditioned to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Norwood, man, thank you so much for being a guest on the Career Musician, brother.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. That was a fun journey we took.
Want to learn more about a particular topic? Tag @TheCareerMusician and use #CareerMusician to let us know what you'd like to hear.
Follow The Career Musician on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on the latest news and tips from the world's leading musicians.
I'm just a nomad, nowhere man, writing the songs in this one-man band. A nomad, yeah, I'm a nomad. Hush now, darling, you'll be fine. I'll be back this way.
Hey, this is Nomad, host and creator of the Career Musician Podcast, and I am thoroughly stoked to be an official member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Pantheon Podcast Network is the first of its kind as an all-music-based podcast collective. Please be sure to check us out at pantheonpodcast.com for more info.